You want to do it, Bill?
Yep, it's on. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. This is April 24th, 2023. This is the Maynard Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. We're participating remote. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of March 27th, 2023. So do we have a motion to approve? Leslie is making such motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of March 23.
Good. Do we get a second?
Second.
Gary seconds. Any comments? I have one that somebody went and spelled my name wrong once. If they could fix that, I would appreciate it.
I will take care of it, Mr. Chair.
It's just once, it's buried halfway down the notes.
I'll take care of that.
All right, so with that under the condition of approval, do we have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I guess, yeah, we got every, I'll vote for it too. That's 6 in favor. Any opposed? I don't see any opposition. And so that carries. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 123 Summer Street special permit renewal application filed by Andy Moreland and Donna Dotson. The subject property is located within the S1 district, zoning district consistent with section 325 and 10.4 of the zoning bylaws. Petitioners requesting a renewal of the special permit allowing a trade shop use (parentheses artist studio) within the subject property, originally approved, dated September 8th, 2022. And so I would like to have the petitioner explain the renewal, their application and so forth. So if they could go off mute and explain what it is they want to do.
Good evening. Thank you so much for granting us the public hearing process to renew our special permit. I'm Donna Dotson, 123 Summer Street.
And I'm Andy Moreline, 123 Summer Street as well, our home.
Since it took so long last year to get through the process, we wanted to just begin with enough time. So our presentation is that since we were granted the special permit, we've been following all of the conditions. We've even added additional mitigation to minimize our impact on our neighbors. We've added a stockade fence that runs the full length of our property as it touches 119 and 115 Summer Street. And there's been no confirmed issues. And so we are just requesting a renewal.
Same conditions as before, as far as the criteria?
Yes, we did have 2 clarifying questions, which I think were forwarded to the board.
Yes, I saw those.
Okay.
So is any audience member willing to speak in favor of this renewal? I'm not hearing any. So is there anyone who wants to speak in opposition to this renewal? I have a hand up on, where was it? My images are jumping all around here. Sorry. Michael, I saw your hand up. Could you speak, please? Michael Hart.
Sure. I don't understand why we're renewing the permit 5 months early. I don't understand why it's for 2 years when in the bylaws it says it requires annual renewal. I don't understand why there's provisions for bonfires and events of obviously a commercial nature. I don't understand why it's still a trade shop if it says art studio next to it. Again, you know well that we were opposed to this in the first place, as well as all 3 abutters that directly touch their property. I don't understand why we're even here right now. And I don't understand why the town is bending over backwards to facilitate these people against 3 other residents.
It's, I don't know if I'm the one to explain all of that, because you say you don't know. The issue is a renewal request of the existing conditions is what I saw for a 1 year. I don't know where you got the 2 year. Is that a misprint somewhere?
I don't know, it's in the papers on the website.
People
Also-
can, the bylaws limit the trade shop renewal to 1 year at this point. If there was a discussion about if the new bylaw was passed, which would apply to this particular petition, this petition will go forward as a trade shop renewal for, if the board decides to renew it, it would be a 1 year renewal.
Okay, so I assume this is basically an end around for when the town vote happens in May, so can I?
Mr. Chair, do you want me to just respond to this, or do we have I don't know how you want to run it.
Well,
Can I request a continuance until the town meeting happens?
that is one option we could consider tonight. Just, you know, it just reminded me as listening to this, that we have to terminate this discussion by 7:30. And it might require a continuance because we have an agenda with the state senator coming up at 7:30 on a different matter. And so bear that in mind as we go through this discussion, please.
Would it help, Mr. Chair, but so we don't end up delaying unnecessarily, would it help if I explained how the town meeting would or would not affect this particular issue?
Sure.
Okay. At this point, the hearing was advertised at a time, the hearing for the new bylaw was advertised. If the bylaw passed, it could be processed under the new bylaw, if assuming it passes, or the existing bylaw. Town council's recommended we move ahead under the existing bylaw. The new bylaw, the parameters of it, the regulatory framework would not make any difference if the board approved this in the same with the same conditions that it had on the previous trade shop permit. There's no end around, there's no changes that that would be applicable one way or the other if this does or does not pass.
They
The
were
changes-
renewing in September, then the new
And-
bylaws would be in place, correct?
It's so that would be the story. You have to direct questions to the chair unless he wants me to go ahead and directly engage.
So, Michael, what was your question there at the end?
If they were renewing in September, when their permit expires, and as people usually renew permits, and the new bylaw were passed in May at the town meeting, then they would be renewing against the new bylaw conditions, correct? I also,
Incorrect. No, that's not correct. They would be grandfathered in because they have an existing permit.
okay, that's not how I understood it or our lawyers understood how this works. Also, I would like to know if they have met the conditions of the previous permit. Have they installed the dust and fume mitigation systems? Their fence makes very little difference. In the noise, we can hear them operating in there. When we asked them about it, they said that they were, quote, building a couch for Christmas or something for one of their family members. So, you know, I don't know, but the noise mitigation that they say they put up hasn't been exactly the best. And I don't know if they've installed the other things that were conditions for their permit yet.
Well, that is a series of questions that I would like to hear back from Donna and Andy, if they would care to comment, please.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess first of all, as we remarked, there were no confirmed issues. We've had a number of basically just false accusations, emails, random things out of the blue. One I received, I was in my pajamas, you know, just having coffee at the breakfast table. I really don't know what to tell you. You know, we're a little, exasperated. But anyways, we did, do the fence. We have done the dust collection and the vapor control system. So as we stated in the beginning, we're in full compliance with all the conditions of the permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments we're in opposition right now of what is this renewal request? Yvette, I see you have your hand up.
I do. Thank you so much. I just had a couple points. Thank you for all of your work. We really appreciate it and know that it's a lot. So thank you everyone for your time. We are concerned about violations to their permit. We have noticed noise. There was a lot of noise in December and external power tools. March and April as well, we've noticed it come up. So we would like to request that there's confirmation that they're in compliance with the special permit request, that there's a site visit. We also would request, since we can hear it, that their weekend hours are diminished since it is disruptive. And we think this is a premature application for renewal, since there is new zoning bylaws that would, if passed, there would not be a trade shop in as an S1 anymore. So we'd like to ask the continuance until after the town meeting. And we're against the 2-year permit. That's the last line of the staff document that was uploaded. We don't support sharing a studio with friends, family, neighbors. That's in the documents. We think that the 2 weekends a year is plenty. The bonfires particularly are disruptive. The filing is also incomplete. There's several pages missing from their application. All the abutters were not notified as well. And then finally, since they're asking for an art studio, commercial art studio is covered in the current bylaws on page 107 as a professional office, and it's not allowed in an S1. So we request that you deny this application. Thank you so much for your time.
That's a lot that you've unloaded on us here. I don't know how to handle all of those at once. The 2-year thing, I don't know if that's a misprint or something, but as Bill just commented, that the renewal would be only for 1 year. So that let's put that one to bed now. I don't know. I didn't see it. Maybe it's just a misprint someplace.
People can ask for whatever they want, Mr. Chair, in the application. They can apply whenever they want. That's the problem that we've run into with timing on this.
The comment about bonfires I find very interesting, because for them to have a bonfire, as it is commented on, requires a permit for each event from the fire department. That's in the fire code to do that. So I don't know where they're getting this concept that they can just have random bonfires. So what else did you comment? You hit me with a lot there.
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to be concise. The bonfire is in their application. The other point was that the application seems to be incomplete. There's a bunch of missing pages, and it doesn't seem like all the abutters were notified based on the list that was uploaded of the abutters.
So Bill, is that true that the abutters were not completely notified?
I would have to find out what abutter says they weren't notified. These go out return receipt requested. I can't say that everybody was notified, but the list, the certified list that was done. This is common, as you know, on public hearings often, that there's a question, one may not have been delivered or what, but they're sent out return receipt requested. It's certainly simple to find out. There's no accountability. If it turns out the person was notified, they would have to, or I'm sorry, if they said that the person was not notified and they were due to be notified, they could make an appeal that they weren't properly noticed. But without a name, I can't just say that people weren't notified. We have a certified mailing list that's done for every public hearing. And to my knowledge, everybody was notified, return receipt requested.
Okay. The next hand that I see raised is Amy Shoes.
Hey there. Amy Shu, 115 Summer Street. I'm a direct abutter to 123 Summer Street. I'm speaking tonight in opposition to the special permit renewal for the residents of 123 Summer Street. I'm asking that you do not entertain this request 5 months before the date of its expiration. I also ask that you do not entertain this idea for 1 or 2. We said that that's not happening, but I would like that to be changed in the papers because it should be. Again, I had wanted to talk about not all abutters being listed on the documents. So they wouldn't be notified of this hearing. Furthermore, this renewal should not be entertained due to the fact that this case is in litigation in Superior Court. The court should decide the next steps and it is still pending review. This should no longer be a ZBA decision. Please do not fast forward this timeline to accommodate this permit just prior to proposed zoning changes to the town meeting in a few short weeks. This request needs to be dismissed because it's premature and it feels like it's on a fast track, and I really don't understand why. This permit is not being asked for in good faith. As for the clarifications being sought, wouldn't the judge be the one that decides any further questions since this is in their jurisdiction? As for complaints, we have them. The issues that we had with this permit before are still unresolved. For us, 115, things have gotten worse since the permit process in terms of what we feel is retribution. On the other hand, we've tried giving the benefit of the doubt to the neighbors and hoping that the noise.
Donna, stop shrugging your shoulders.
Stop. Being that the noise being made,
insulting.
Was due to improvements that the current permit was being asked for. This is truly negatively affecting our quality of life, the enjoyment of our home and property, and has caused a tremendous amount of stress to us, to our family, to the surrounding neighborhood. Please do not consider the renewal for this permit until the courts have issued their decision. Thank you.
If I could add a thing or two. The wonderful bamboo they put up is extremely invasive, and it took 6 years to have them maintain it just once, so it wasn't leaning on the barn. Every year, it just makes a complete mess of the yard, and everybody knows that bamboo creates its own ecosystem by shading light and mulching the ground. The wonderful fence they put in for us so nicely, they put in backwards and then proceeded to stuff things underneath it. They walked across our yard, which there is a police report on file about this, to do it while claiming that they were staying on their own property. The certified list of abutters is missing people. You can check that. It's pretty easy for anybody to do. But honestly, it's just, it's kind of amazing to me that it would even be entertained right now, knowing that it's in the Superior Court under appeal. And I can't imagine a decision would be made while it's still under appeal. I can't imagine anybody would feel good about that. I don't understand why we wouldn't seek the court's opinion now that it's been put into their jurisdiction. It's no longer in this jurisdiction. And in our attorney's opinion, this hearing is unlawful while it's even still under appeal. So,
Mr. Chair, I have to say, this is absolutely completely off track of the hearing.
this is about the hearing and the results of the last time that you permitted it.
Let's try to keep this in it.
Yeah, we
Let's
have
keep
to, we
this
have
in an
to,
organized-
we can't just let this go with this. This is a completely separate hearing from the appeal that the abutter is talking about. The town council has advised this.
If
It's
this is-
absolutely.
If this is completely separate, how come all the same
It
letters
is-
are submitted?
Mr. Chair, can we mute the abutters, please? Until this is, I would suggest a time limit. This is going to be another, we have to have some sort of time limit, but we have to stay on track, Mr. Chair. We're getting dragged off track. The issue at hand is the board is considering renewal of a legal special permit.
That is,
Town council has advised this. People have different opinions. That's fine. Their attorneys can weigh in. They can weigh in through the proper channels. But to be clear, this is under town council advisement, how this is going.
town council or town council? Like the selectman or like the lawyer?
Town lawyers.
This is a renewal of the same
Hey,
permit.
who's speaking now? Please identify yourself so we have this. We have too many people. Who, I don't even.
Michael Hart, 119.
Right, Mr. Chair, how do you want to proceed with the hearing? Would you like me to respond directly to the abutters?
Well, what I'm hearing is a lot of unsubstantiated personal concerns from the neighbors. And I'm not arguing that it's a bad thing, but for us to develop the criteria for renewing the special permit, we need to have facts. And I'm hearing a lot of emotion. And I'm sorry about the emotion. I don't know what we can do with that right now. But we are rapidly running out of time for this. So regarding the legal thing and the appeal process, that has been put on a stay for now. So there is no forward motion on the appeal.
That has not happened. That stay has not happened.
Well,
So you know, that has not happened. Once we got this, we said, nope.
I don't know about your opinion on that, but the documents I've seen said it says stay for a while until after the town meeting stuff. The issue, as I see it, I've got literally only 5 minutes to put this together as to what we're going to do tonight. And I think the simple thing is to ask for a continuance until our next regularly scheduled meeting. And our regularly scheduled meeting, Bill, is when?
That would be May.
The applicant did request that if there was a continuance tonight, to have it continued to June, since they will be out of town.
Then that would be June 26th. If the board chose to do.
All right. So can we have a vote?
Can I ask one clarifying question, please? This is Amy Shu.
Sure, if you wish.
I would like to ask the chairman a question of, so you're saying you're hearing a lot of emotion, and that's absolutely correct. This is very emotional and really been hard. So we have not had enough time to provide you with what you need. So before the next meeting, who would you like us to direct our complaints to? Where, what should we properly, how can we properly do that?
Police reports and
That would all be towards Bill Nemser at town. And he's the coordinator of all those documents that might develop. And we should get those put into the record at our next meeting, which is looking like June 26th.
Any complaints during regular business hours should go to the Office of Municipal Services. And it's going to be referred, if it's a typical noise complaint or a something in violation of the permit, that would go to the building commissioner. It'll be routed to the building commissioner. If it's after hours, you can call the police department and they can make a documentation report. That's all there is to it.
All right, so I see a hand up from a couple of folks here. Donna and Andy, I will grab you first because
Paul, do you mind if we just take 1 minute and could I just change the settings? We didn't get a chance to change the settings at the beginning, and it just so that we have control of the meeting.
sure, you can do that.
Okay. 30 seconds. Thank you. Okay, so all the let's see, I just need to reclaim host bill for a second so I can do that. And now all of the members of the zoning board will be created as co-hosts, so that you will have muting and unmuting powers.
Thank you. We're running out of time for this portion of our discussion. So I was going to ask Don and Andy if they had a quick comment before we turn this over to the state senator. So Don and Andy, could you had your hand up. Is there something you want to say? And this is real quick because we
Thank you
have.
very much.
Thank you very
Absolutely, we
much.
understand that.
Yes, basically, there was a question about the notification of the abutters. We were charged for that all the abutters were notified by a certified mailing. So I don't know. So that's one. Two, it's common for people to have cooking fires in their backyard, which we do, along with many other people in town. And a lot of the other issues are just untrue and very much off the subject.
We have not violated any of the conditions. We have not violated any of the conditions.
Thank you. And we will continue this till June 26th, and we'll put this first on the agenda, so that'll be 7 PM, June 26th. And I'm sorry, Angeline, we didn't get to your comment. If you could save it for them, that would be great. And we do have Senator Jamie coming in a few minutes on a different matter. And so I appreciate your patience as we continue this to June 26th. There is another case in front of us this evening. Which one is that? That's the Fairfield Street.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
And we will have to continue that until our next meeting, which is what, May? Help me out.
That, if the board wants to continue that, that's scheduled after Senator Eldridge's discussion. So I don't know if the board wants to
That
wait
was
till
going
after
to be
that.
at 8
continue it.
PM.
We don't know how long that discussion is going to go. And so I would suggest we continue that one until the May meeting.
Okay, we
then-
might have to continue again because I'm not sure if the applicant will be available, but I will double check and we'll be sure to get that information to you.
Thank you, because I don't know how long our discussion with Jamie Eldridge is going to go this evening. And so just for courtesy, we'll, instead of having those folks just sit around for the next hour or whatever, to just continue it.
Is the applicant here from Fairfield?
I am looking right now. There's a lot of people on. Do you see her? Oh, Gwen, is that you?
Hi, my name is Gwen Bates. I actually live next door to Betsy Peterson, who is the applicant. She's actually at the airport and was going to join, but I've been texting with her during this meeting. So I think she would prefer that it is continued to May, but I can
Okay.
find out for you if you'd prefer.
All right,
Thanks, Gwen.
thank you very much, everybody. It is now 7:30 and we have James Elbridge here online. Thank you, James, for attending our zoning board meeting.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Oh, great.
Mr. Chair, would you like me just to bring in a little background for the ZBA and for our audience about tonight's discussion with the senator?
That would be great. Bill is our town planner, and he has been spearheading the coordination with you, Mr. Elbridge. So I'd like to give the floor to him to sort of describe the conundrum we're under to try to figure out what we can do on the town level for this gun control issue. So go ahead, Bill.
Okay, well, I'll give you the senator a quick introduction real quick. Senator Eldridge has been our state senator from Middlesex and the Worcester District since January of 2009. He represents 14 communities in Metro West. He serves as the Senate Chair of the Joint Committee on the Judiciary, serves as the Senate Vice Chair of the Joint Committee on Election Laws, Senate Chair of Clean Energy, Criminal Justice Reform, Medicare for All, and MBTA caucuses. And so we're very fortunate to have the senator with us tonight. As I've explained, that this is by request of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Just to give the audience and the senator a little background, I'm sure he's familiar with why we requested he come, but the town is considering a development of amendment to the zoning bylaws that would require a level of permitting for firearm retail sales and perhaps accessory uses. Something in the line of a special permit that would be in line with some of our other uses that we have downtown. Because of the various circumstances that can come up, particularly when firearms are involved in any sort of local legislation. The board wanted to take advantage of some of Senator Eldridge's knowledge and his work with his other communities, particularly Littleton, and to hear about any lessons that may be learned, any views on future state legislation that may make local changes either superfluous or more important, and pretty much just to take advantage of your experience and your know-how. I don't know what's convenient for you, Senator, but I did compile a number of questions from our board that I would be happy to run through, but I didn't know if, you know, maybe you would want to make a little bit of a introduction and lead it how you'd like, or we'd be happy to lead with our questions, Senator. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Paul, and thank you to the board for inviting me. And yeah, this is an issue that I've really had to dive into over the past year with the revelation of, at least at the time, 86 licensed gun dealers in the town of Littleton in a mill that's at the Littleton Common, sort of right at 495 in the Common. So, you know, my legal counsel, David Emmer, you know, myself, we're in touch with the Littleton Select Board to, you know, provide some guidance looking at what the city of Newton passed for regulating licensed gun dealers. And we did, you know, provide that information to Littleton, and hopefully my staff had passed on the bylaw that did pass Littleton town meeting. And I guess I would just say is that, you know, while you can't completely prohibit, you know, a licensed gun dealer, because obviously, you know, they're a gun dealer, so long as they're following the laws, has a right to be in a community. You can obviously regulate, you know, where it's located, the number, and you know, is it, you know, near, making sure it's not near a school or, you know, place of worship, and therefore, you know, you can effectively severely limit that. And I would, you know, say, don't have to tell anyone here, but, you know, Maynard is a town that is, you know, very dense in its area, very small town, but a lot of, you know, dense development and housing and commercial districts close together. So therefore, you know, probably could pretty effectively limit gun dealers in Maynard if that's something the board or the people of Maynard wanted. So Littleton did pass this bylaw. And, you know, I have a legal memo from my legislative director, and if it makes Maynard feel a little bit better, other towns are obviously now looking at this because some of the licensed gun dealers at the old mill in Littleton are leaving and they're looking at other towns. And that's obviously part of why we're here tonight. But I know that Acton is looking at a bylaw. I know that Shirley is, and I think Westford. So it's something that, you know, communities are experiencing together. And I do think that, you know, a bylaw can be passed and hold up to legal muster, you know, with the recognition that obviously there's some Supreme Court action around the right to bear arms in the Second Amendment. However, you know, in terms of zoning, you know, there still is a lot of deference to, you know, the operation, location of certain facilities, including licensed gun dealers. And therefore, I do believe, you know, I'm a legislator. I'm not speaking as a lawyer, but as a legislator, I do believe that, you know, the town of Maynard would have the constitutional legal backing to pass a strong bylaw to limit licensed gun dealers in the town of Maynard. So that's my brief remarks, and happy to answer questions as best as I can.
Excuse me, Senator, one point of clarification and order. Mr. Chair, in our rush to jump into this, we have not closed the previous hearing to continue it. We need a vote real quick.
Oh,
sorry, Senator.
No problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
All in favor?
That's to continue the hearing for 123 Summer until June 26th.
Correct. And the other one till May, whatever our meeting date was.
That would be for May, was it 22nd?
Did we get a motion on that?
We did
Yes.
not on the
31 Fairfield.
31 Fairfield, no.
Did someone make a motion?
Yeah,
I
let's,
can make it now,
Okay.
just to formalize it. So I move to continue the public hearing for 31 Fairfield Street application to the ZBA's May 22nd meeting, and to continue the public hearing for the variance application and the special permit renewal for 123 Summer Street to the ZBA's June 26th meeting at 7 p.m.
Very good. Thank you, Paige.
a second on that.
Yes.
Second.
And just a quick vote, if I get a quick vote.
Yes. We're all voting. Good.
Those, to be clear, that's for both hearings.
Yes.
That's
Thank you. All apologies, Senator, for that.
No problem.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to go through some of the board's questions first, and perhaps it would, I tried to put them in order, so they kind of, because I had some really good questions, and I thought they kind of sequenced down, and some of them, the senator may not be prepared to answer, or I can, and some may be able to pull right off the top of his head.
So since I volunteered you because you speak so eloquently, Bill, why don't you go through your questions?
Okay, Senator, could you explain the legal steps requirements in Massachusetts for a person to actually purchase a gun or rifle? And specifically, our board was interested in things like what, were there age requirements, background check processes, and so on. Could you just give a snapshot of how somebody would basically purchase a gun in Massachusetts legally?
Yeah, this is an area I again, I'm not an expert on this, but a person does have to go to the to go to the police station where that person lives and apply for a license to carry a gun, and there is a background check done. The area, and you have to be age 18 or older. The area that due to the New York Supreme Court decision last year did strike down a police chief not having to have any specific reason, basically having broad discretion to deny a permit, and so therefore the legislature, and I worked on this last year during the legislative session, we passed a specific language that said that if someone has a history of domestic violence or other history of violence, that then the police chief shall deny that permit. So that was done to address the Supreme Court decision striking down the earlier language of the Massachusetts law. So we're hoping that holds. We do believe it will hold, and I think that the area that I've been working on, and I was just at training last week, is making sure that police chiefs and police departments are properly trained about how to inspect licensed gun dealers, because as I learned last week during a training out in Southbridge at the Municipal Police Training Committee headquarters, is that ATF, the federal agency, is supposed to do a check once a year, but given the massive number of dealers across the country, that doesn't always happen, and therefore police departments and police chiefs often do, and it's important that they know all the things to check, and that clearly is something I can't speak to the Maynard police chief. I think he does a terrific job, so I can't speak to his experience, but many cities and towns, often the small rural towns, felt that they didn't have the expertise to properly inspect gun dealers, and that's why there's this training going on thanks to the Healy Driscoll administration.
If so, for the board's edification, if the board had no local requirements for firearms whatsoever, this would still apply because it's a state level.
Right, yeah, in other words, I don't think we're talking about allowing dealers, which I think is the main subject, right? It was just someone being able to obtain a gun legally.
Yeah, if somebody, in other words, I was not familiar exactly how you would purchase a gun in Massachusetts at all. And I'm not sure that the board was. I think that was what the intent of the question was. You know, what would be right now? What would happen if they walked in to purchase a weapon?
Right.
The second question is there anything at the state level going on that you're aware of right now that would really take away the need for local legislation? Is there something going on? The board is concerned that with 351 municipalities, that there's a possibility that, you know, there may be something at the state level that's going to, you know, make this local legislation somewhat superfluous. Do you know, are you aware of anything, or do you have any suggestions there?
Yeah, Bill, there has been no bill to, more broadly limit gun dealers in any particular municipality. I think, quite honestly, because of, for better or worse, that the home rule, local control nature of the legislature is that I doubt, even if such a proposal came forward, it would pass. So it really is up to each city or town. And I'd be the first to acknowledge that there are some communities, perhaps as you move further west, that may be more welcoming and may want, more gun dealers or be supportive of gun dealerships. And therefore it's really, I really think it's squarely on the shoulders of cities or towns to make these decisions.
Great, that's good. Okay, good. The next couple of questions are to do with Littleton. So I don't know if these are easy for you to answer or may not be, but you already mentioned that so far as the writing and creation of the Littleton gunshot bill, it was based on Newton's.
Yes.
Originally. So I put those for our audience on our agenda package there. I put I put Newton's bylaw, I put Littleton's bylaw, and I put 2 draft bylaws that you can access by just going to the agenda page if you want. So were there any parts of the knowing what you know now with the Littleton bill, were there any parts that you think were unnecessary or superfluous that stuck out?
No, I think that what Littleton did was quite comprehensive, and also, and again, they spoke at great length with my legislative director to get the language right, and obviously, as you can see in sort of the purpose section, you're invoking safety, you're invoking general welfare of the residents of that town, in that case obviously Littleton. So it's important to have that basis, because clearly so many of these gun law decisions are looking for legislative intent and the purpose or values behind a particular law or bylaw. So yeah, so I think it was it was pretty straightforward. I would also acknowledge that I think it was a fairly close vote at Littleton town meeting. So it's not necessarily a no-brainer, these proposals. So
well, we kind of flipping it, were there was there anything you thought was superfluous? Were there any rules that stick out, or any provisions that you think should have been added now in hindsight, or things that could have been done to make the regulation tighter?
I apologize, Bill, could you say that again?
Was there anything that you felt that now in hindsight, is there anything you felt that could have been added to the legislation to help it be more effective?
I do not know. I think I think we really wanted to be comprehensive and really go to right to the edge, if you will, of what there was a comfort level legally in this current environment. So I feel very comfortable. Obviously, if folks here haven't spoken to your peers in Littleton, I would strongly encourage that. So
Okay, great. You mentioned some of the closed vote, and could you give the board a little idea about the type of pushback that was received while preparing and bringing this legislation forward to town meeting? Oh, I think we lost you.
We're,
No, we
Mr.
lost
Eldridge, there we go. You were on
Sorry
mute there
about
for a minute.
Yeah, so I guess the only thing I can say for Littleton is that I think it was probably just that and you see it in some of the newspaper stories, especially the Globe on this, is that look, I mean the dealers, I mean, there is a right obviously to open up a gun dealership. There is obviously a right to bear arms, and therefore I think probably the argument was, perhaps, from a financial point of view, because you're probably fairly soon going to have a mill that is pretty empty. But I would just say, in terms of who I heard from my constituents, is overwhelmingly expressing deep concern about the large number of gun dealers, as I'm sure everybody here knows from the news stories. It was the highest density of licensed gun dealers in the country in Littleton. So it's quite surprising. So there seemed to be quite a grassroots effort to change that.
Great. Okay. Have the residents of Littleton that you're aware of, are they pretty much satisfied with it, you think, in general now? Do they feel it was comprehensive enough and it's doing the job? Have you heard any feedback on this yet? Or?
Yes. Yep. I since the bylaw passed, I haven't heard anything from residents about it, really on either side. So, and just so everyone knows, I did go through the mill and, talk to some of the dealers. So try to do, my due diligence to see the exact property and how the dealers were set up, and, talk to obviously a lot of municipal officials and of course the police chief extensively.
Yeah. Oh, good. Great. Okay. Well, these are good questions, board. I like you did a good job with these.
Yes.
What this is interesting. What is the arguable reasoning behind the proximity limitations?
Oh, I think it's just that, and we've seen this with the discussion around, cannabis and, other products is some of it is, not being able to be able to see, a dealership from, a school or place of worship or a firing range. So, I mean, to some extent, it gets a little bit arbitrary, but I think this is based on, other activities that are regulated where perhaps there's safety municipal officials or law enforcement.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you have any advice for handling questions and answers at town meeting for this board and for any of the other boards that may be involved with this?
Yeah, I would just say really important, obviously, to have your police chief, very involved in, whatever the chief is allowed to state as a position. I think that's incredibly important. We rely so much on our police chiefs. They have so much more to do now. And of course, again, as we discussed at the beginning, they are the chief regulating authority, if you will, for someone, getting a gun. And therefore, a lot of people rely on what the chief has to say. So I think that's critical. And, not to get too much into sort of how town meeting works and why some things pass and why things don't. But certainly you want to have, residents, if they're really concerned about more dealerships coming to Maynard, to have, a real organization and grassroots effort to, to make sure those residents who are concerned about that obviously show up at town meeting.
Okay. Would you would you mentioned with you and your staff had worked on Littleton's legislation. If this board did decide to move forward with it, would your office be willing to assist if possible with the crafting of any local legislation?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And for what it's worth, we were also in touch with the Attorney General's office. Of course, it was the previous Attorney General, now the governor, but we're now in touch with the new Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, as she's reviewing, all gun safety legislation. But these kind of bylaws, pretty much, as pretty much every municipal bylaw, needs to be approved of this nature by the Attorney General. So we're in touch with the AG's office to make sure that it's going in the right direction.
And the board has been trying to really consider this before they move forward with anything. One question that a couple of them have sent me is, they're very concerned about how restrictive could a bylaw be before that it's appear to be infringing on somebody's rights to open a business, regardless of the type of business. And I appreciate their sensitivity to this. I think it's a good, a good concern to have.
Yeah.
And I did make a note here for the audience, just to give you a general idea. Currently, the zoning bylaws require special permits, which are basically just a local public hearing for, if you want to open a fast food restaurant, if you have a veterinary practice, if adult daycare, a bar, a for-profit school, car repairs, kennels, private clubs. So that just gives you kind of an idea of the type of businesses that we currently require special permits for. Mr. Chair, that gives us everything that our board has sent to us. If you want to open it for questions or however you'd like to run it. And I thank you again, Senator, for your answering all of our questions. I think they were quality questions. It was
Absolutely. Great questions. No, thanks for inviting me, but happy to answer other questions.
Sure, I would like to open it up to the members of the zoning board first, if there are any questions, and Leslie, go ahead if you can. Take your mute off.
Okay, sorry, I have laryngitis.
Oh, sorry.
I'm curious about the fact that I think Acton is proposing to have only 2 shops at a time. And I'm not aware of other businesses that are that restricted. So I'm just wondering how they managed that, and if you think they're going to get a lot of pushback about that. Because I don't think Littleton limited the number.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's, I mean, again, invoking health and safety. I don't know if they found a different avenue. I've certainly talked to the Acton town manager, but we're not in touch with, they went through their legal counsel to do that. So I can't speak to how they came to that.
Okay, well, it must be legal.
Anything else, Leslie?
No, I'm just concerned. I wonder about the limitations, the proximity things, just because our town is so small that it almost makes it impossible to have a shop anywhere. And I don't want us to be accused of trying to outlaw them altogether. And I can anticipate that there could be some pushback about that. But
Yeah, I can't speak to that. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Any other zoning board members that have questions for Mr. Eldridge?
oh, I know. At town meeting, there will probably be somebody who has to stand up and answer questions from the public. Who do you best see as being that person? The police chief or?
Yeah, I would say it probably be a combination of the police chief and the town's legal counsel. Yep.
Okay.
Any other zoning board member questions? Any other board members that are here that might have questions? Planning board or anybody?
I see
So-
planning.
So
planning
Paul,
board.
I have everyone is muted unless you say that we can call on them and then I'll unmute them.
Good. So if anybody has a question, go ahead and tell Julia that they want to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. Senator, my name is Chris Arsenault. I'm the chairman of the planning board here in Maynard. I just wanted to thank you again for your time and your efforts on this and your support. Big picture question. I have a few questions, but a big picture question is that when I read over the zoning bylaws from the other towns, it all seems that the way they've approached this is to tackle this as a use permit with specific location and then other criteria that needs to be met. And usually the SPGA, the Special Permit Granting Authority, is the planning board. Do you see any other avenues for approaching this besides that particular avenue that I just mentioned?
I apologize, but I can't offer any guidance on that. Yeah, I'm not familiar with any other.
Sorry, am I getting a little too techie on you?
I am a lawyer, though I don't practice, so.
Got it. Okay. But it sounds like the way other towns have approached it has been from a use permit. So I think one thing we'll do, Bill, I'd like to know if there are other avenues in the town of Massachusetts besides approaching it just as a use permit as we approach this forward. My other question, Senator Eldridge, is that I've seen some of the nomenclature here to be about firearm dealer, gunsmith, and fire range are activities that have been considered in some of the zoning. And I think we need to pay attention to the terminology here, but specifically, has there been much regulatory discussions regarding fire ranges as opposed to gun dealerships?
I mean, you mean in terms of further regulating fire ranges or?
Yes, sir.
I have not, I think, and obviously I know Maynard has one. So does, Acton, Harvard does, is that, I have not heard of any push to add further regulation for fire ranges. It really does seem to be just focused on licensed gun dealers.
Okay, so the current efforts, as I understood it too, is that this is based solely on firearm dealerships in what I've seen in some languages, gunsmiths, but it sounds like you have the same understanding too.
Right.
Those are my two big questions. My other question was about whether we could receive upfront support from your office and AG, but it sounds like that is a yes, and I'm very appreciative of that effort. So thank you, Senator, again for being here tonight.
Thank you. And yes, and absolutely full support.
All right. So the next group I'd like to hear from, if they have any questions, are the general public members that are listening in. Signal to Julia if you wish to speak and she'll try to unmute you.
Mr. Hart has his hand up and I think that's it.
She just unmuted me. Hello, Senator. Thank you for your time today. I am just a town citizen, but I have a couple of questions. Also thought maybe I could add some education to the gun purchase process. You get the permit from the local police department. It comes with a PIN number. You go to the gun dealer, you choose your weapon, you give them your ID, your permit, and then you have to have the PIN. And then they do another background check through the FBI NICS system. And then after that comes back, it can be held or you can receive the firearm the same day. So that's the process basically. So there's 2 background checks in there at some point. And that's if you're legally doing it and you're not doing it at a firearms show. My question is, you mentioned that there were 86 gun dealers at the mill in Littleton. I have been there and I understood that a lot of the dealers were actually FFLs, federally regulated firearms dealers, that have to hold an FFL in order to be a gunsmith, which is a repairer of firearms. Are those all rolled together under the term gun dealers? Or were there actually 86 separate firearms stores at the mill?
I think you are, yeah, I think you are correct in your characterization. And, you know, I went up and down the mill building has a lot of, you know, different stairwells and, you know, hallways and such. And, you know, you have the sort of antique collectors and clearly operations that, you know, at least as far as I could tell, were not particularly active or maybe just available for appointment, whereas others were quite large and quite busy. So yeah, so I think those are all wrapped up in the 86, and that I think that's an accurate statement.
Okay, and the legislature, I haven't seen the bylaws for Newton and Littleton as they were drafted, but is there any discrimination made between like a gunsmith and a general dealer of firearms, or is it all categorized the same way in the way that it's permitted and dealt with through the town bylaws?
I believe it's the same because it's just any entity that has to get that, you know, FFL. So.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate
Mr. Hart, if you go on on our the town website, I've loaded there's 2 drafts and there's 2 that have passed. The biggest change I saw, there were distinct definitions established, which were lacking. So
Gotcha.
for example, a gunsmith, a retailer, you know, whatever it may be. It's worth it. You probably learned a lot from perusing it. I was trying to get all the ones that were somewhat similar, you know, in the area. So they're on there if you'd like to look at them, or I could send them to you.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any other folks on the call that want to ask Senator Eldridge any gun-related questions? Wow, you're good. You answered everybody's question.
I tell you, I mean, really having to dig into this, it's been quite exhaustive and just, yeah, so much to learn. And again, when I went to that training last week in Southbridge with, you know, police chiefs from across the state, I mean, you know, there were a lot of questions there too. So I think actually there's so many intricacies, and there's federal law and state law. So it's really quite a learning process for a lot of people involved.
Yeah, the one question that I had, Bill asked it in his list of questions, but I just wanted to reflect on it a little bit more about what could be done at the state level so that you don't end up with 300 some local ordinances that are either in favor or restrictive to gun shops, and make it sort of a mosaic. If the state could unify that, could that happen?
It certainly could, and we've seen other examples, you know, the smoking, you know, bylaws from approximately 15 years ago in a lot of cities and towns, you know, plastic bag bans, obviously cannabis. So I do wonder at some point if there is a tipping point where there will be a push for a state enabling statute that, you know, creates a controlling, you know, clear standard for the whole state. But I'm, you know, obviously so far it's just a couple of communities. So we'll see what happens, I would say, over the next, you know, this year or next year.
And so how do we change that on the state level? Do you float something to your legislative body and have it shot down a few times before they start hearing it in the other areas? How does that work?
Yeah, I would say that if there's suddenly a critical mass of these bylaws passing in communities across the state, I think that would perhaps gain the greater attention of, say, the attorney general or legislators in general. And then I'd be the first to say it's a fairly political process, but, you know, again, you know, an issue I'm also very passionate about, the, you know, plastic bag ban. And that's something that, you know, started in a number of communities, and now I'm the Senate sponsor of the bill to ban, you know, plastic bags across the state, but, you know, it still hasn't passed. So it's still sort of a quote unquote political process of legislative deliberation.
Great. Well, we really appreciate your time on the call. And, wait, Leslie. Yes, Leslie, go ahead.
Am I, uh-oh, wait. I got lost here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh.
Mhm.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, sorry. I don't remember whether or not I saw it in the Littleton bill, but you had mentioned that there are supposed to be these yearly checks by the ATF, is that what it is?
Yes,
Yeah, and that it often happens that they can't get around to it yearly.
exactly.
So, should there be something in our bill that says that at least our police department has to do a yearly check?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I do think that that's the current state law for the police chief to do that.
Oh,
But,
okay,
But certainly, you know, it's possible to put something in there at the local level.
okay. Thank you.
Well, I think we got, how's the board, do you feel a little more comfortable to discuss this further and see how you want to take it now?
Sure.
yes, I think we have a pretty good idea of what we're up against and the documents that we need to prepare. And then approach the town meeting concept and see what we can get established. I believe, Leslie, you're the champion of this. You feel comfortable with what we're doing?
Yeah, I'm pleased that it's moving ahead. Yes.
Yeah,
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, what would be a practical way to go forward at this point would be if we have town meeting coming up, get that behind us. And then perhaps a joint meeting with the planning board would be the most productive. Since they're going to be carrying it forward.
I
But
see
I would-
Chris nodding over there, so I think he's in agreement as well.
And Senator, again, thank you for taking the time to come in. We appreciate it so much. And the board
Yes.
is, this is our second bylaw that that's a
Mhm.
in-depth exercise. So it really helped us quite a bit. And I'm certain that we'll be in touch with your office for any assistance that the board feels they need. But again, many, many thanks.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate your due diligence. Thanks for inviting me. Good luck with the
Yeah.
rest of your meeting.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Yep.
Wow. Quite a discussion. Really appreciate his time.
It was very interesting, you know, Paul, the question that you're asking about, you know, what is it, you know, what could this be superfluous? Do we need it or where do we need it? And I thought his response was interesting because as Mr. Hart pointed out, there is an extensive process federal, but on the other hand, you know, the senators seem to think that having a local use level was important. So it gives us a lot to chew on.
It certainly does. Chris has his hand up. Unmute and then we can, yeah, go for it.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, thanks for the great discussion tonight. Yeah, we can certainly talk further on how to strategize on how to support this. On the particular issue of whether it should be state or local law, I find that, you know, Maynard is very different than a lot of the other communities. And so sometimes I find that state law has a hard time. It's kind of a round peg for us when it comes to zoning. And it can be kind of trying to fitting into a square hole when it comes to Maynard. A good example is the MBTA communities regulations bill that are designed for some kind of these larger towns with other resources. It's not really designed necessarily for us, but we have to abide by it. So I think it's very helpful to have some specifics to help design this so that it fits for Maynard. So I think it's a good idea to approach this collectively as the two boards, if the zoning board would also be amenable to that. So that's my statement as chair of the planning board, but also just thank you tonight for the very good discussion.
Thank you for attending, Chris.
Of course.
It's great to have a different perspective. Zoning versus planning versus whatever else we're struggling with here.
Mhm.
So,
Was there any discussion about schedule on that? Was this board thinking of working towards potentially a fall town meeting? Or are we thinking spring town meeting next year?
I had requested the board, I had requested the board and really just leave it at this and work on a little subgroup, but until the town meeting's done to kind of keep it, we'll look at the schedule after, but right now there's a subgroup that a sub person, a subgroup that will eventually be formed. We have one person from ZBA right now that's working with me on it.
And so the concept would be similar to other bylaws we've approached as a joint subcommittee, you think would be the approach, Bill?
I would think that's what this board would like. But I mean, am I incorrect, Paul or Leslie? I mean,
I'd like to see it be voted on at fall town meeting.
Well,
Yeah.
we just have to make sure there's enough articles for the fall town meeting to make sure that it happens. This fall town meeting is not always guaranteed, so
Oh,
we just
we're
need to make sure
supposed
there's
to have
enough of
one
the general.
this year.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and when we were talking earlier, Chris, the challenge was sooner better than later because of these 86 businesses that have been dealt with in Littleton. Where are they going? And if we end up with a whole bunch in Maynard before we have any bylaws to manage them, now they're technically grandfathered.
Yes, I understand that. I also see it as I would any use in town. As Bill mentioned, there's a number of uses that require permits, tattoo parlors, gas stations, restaurants, everything else. If the way I look at this is that if this is an area where we don't have a regulated use on our books, I think we should. So, and I would say the same thing for any other type of use that should probably be regulated. So I agree.
Another
The
thing
sooner the better, I think. But I would say that for any use that is not properly regulated in town.
Chris, you just made something that just occurred to me. With taking something like, for example, alcohol or marijuana, if there's a question of limitations, that's not something either of our boards would get involved with. So it would be something we'd want to make sure that the select board was apprised of as we go through too, because that would fall under their bailiwick.
And by limitations, what are you referring to?
Well, for example, there's been limits set in some urban suggestions for limits set, like, for example,
Limiting the
5
number
marijuana
of
shops or,
Got it. Limiting the
and
number of permits in
I
town.
don't know, if that's what would want, but I guess the point I'm making is that it would be worth, seeing what they want.
And you're saying if we ever approach the concept of limiting numbers, limit the number of permits available, similar to a liquor establishment, that's a select board conversation as well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the thing we found with other stuff, because Maynard's so compact, when you deal, like, for example, with, let's say, a 500-foot separation rule for whatever use it is, there's a number of them. And like Leslie had pointed out, it makes it so you really can't do it anywhere in downtown.
Yeah.
So maybe a way to look at it as well. Okay, we know that, there's only so much you're gonna do with this separation, if you want a separation, but that perhaps limiting the number is something that, you say you can have 5 or 6 or what, 2 or 3, whatever. That's a possibility too, but I am not sure. I think that's pretty much select board. I don't think that would be appropriate for zoning, but on the other hand, I saw it's proposed in the one of the bylaws, I think in the Acton bylaw. I don't know what'll happen with it, so maybe it could be, but I'm not sure if that's the place where it would be.
Yeah, Leslie says 2 in Acton.
Oh, I thought she was saying peace.
So. And I think the way we're going to proceed with this, if I can interpret what you're saying, Bill, is that our team of 1 on the zoning board needs to find a compatriot on the planning board to work together and develop some language that takes what the other towns have already premeditated and phrase it for the betterment of Maynard and see what we can put together. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say that it would be a discussion that if Chair Chris is open to that, that would be the most productive way to go forward. We have our outreach. We took a lot of time to prepare the other one, last bylaw, but having the outreach and figuring out what we're trying to achieve with it I think it would be very practical to work with at least the planning board on this, and certainly involving the police chief early on would be key.
So do we want to put, as Chris asked, a timetable together to get started anyways? Is this something that would happen, say, on a monthly basis, bi-weekly basis, to have these, offline discussions to develop some documents, have some discussions with the police chief, et cetera?
If I may?
Yeah.
I do like Bill's suggestion of waiting till after town meeting.
Oh, yeah,
I
definitely for
have,
that, yeah.
I have a number of items that I'm preparing for town meeting, and this is a volunteer activity, of course. So I would prefer to wait to get started until, maybe start talking in May, and then maybe set something up over the summer. That would be my thought. Paul?
Well, that's good. I just wanted to start getting a focus on the timing of it. If we start over the summer, what are the chances of being ready by fall meeting? I don't know the logistics there, but it sounds like that's going to be tight.
I don't know. I think you're right, Paul. One of my favorite things to do on the planning board is to instruct Bill and give him assignments. So maybe we just instruct Bill to put together a schedule and a timeline that meets fall town meeting.
Excellent. I love that.
Put him to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. I really look forward to that sort of thing. And it but the key will be on the level and the amount of outreach that we think we need for it. If it's a very simple tweak that simply says, a special permit's required, and really that's as far as it goes, like we do it, we could probably, we get a timeline for that. If there's going to be a level of where we're going to get more into the weeds and we think we need a lot of outreach, more than was afforded with a public hearing, 1 or 2 public hearings, the board can decide at that point. But I think that I can get you rough timelines for that anyway. And you can decide what the board's pleasure is.
Yeah, your comment about, does it need a permit? Yeah, but the requirements for that permit is where the meat of the action is. Are you in a zone that can handle it? Is, the distance from a school, all that stuff. So that's where the action is going to be in writing this, rather than just a one-liner, a special permit. So there's going to be some work. And if you can get that all scheduled and say how many meetings to get all that work done, and have Chris nominate somebody from the planning board to help out, that would be really cool, Bill.
I think we can do it.
Okay. Any further comments from the zoning board folks that are here? I love this deafening silence. So can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting? Is anybody gonna?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I get a second? Get
Okay.
a second. All in favor? Yeah,
Thanks, everybody.
thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chris.
folks. Good meeting. Bye.